Hello and welcome to Talk About Jazz with Doug Hall. I'm your host, Doug Hall, and today our artist is Aditi Malhotra. Miss Malhotra is a vocalist and composer from India. She is a recent Berklee College of Music graduate of the Global Jazz Institute program, graduating with a professional development music course in performance in 2022. Welcome, Aditi. I'm glad to have you on the show and looking forward to talking to you a bit about your musical career thus far and your recordings.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad we connected. I'm just going to share with the audience a bit of your background because I always think it's important for an audience to understand the foundations of the artist's musical experience. If we were to look at Miss Malhotra's resume, we would start with, obviously, as a vocalist and composer. She's from New Delhi, India, with an early background in Hindustani Classical music and later influences in jazz and Black American music and Brazilian music. She has performed at notable venues such as NCPA in Mumbai and the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. She won a number of inter-school, state, and national level singing competitions and was a recipient of the 2021 ASCAP Foundation Herb Alpert Young Jazz Composer Award. After completing her degree in English literature from ASCAP University, she received a full tuition scholarship to study at Berklee College of Music, where she studied performance and composition under the mentorship of Danilo Perez, Terry Lynn Carrington, Chris Davis, and John Patitucci, and has trained with vocalists among the likes of Luciano Sousa and Raphael Brochet. She was also selected to attend the Betty Carter's Jazz Ahead residency in 2022, led by jazz pianist Jason Moran. She has been a member of the voice faculty at One World College of Music and also teaches privately. Wow, that's an exceptional resume to begin with already. So I'm excited to be able to have a conversation with you and to hear more about really the voice and vocals as an instrument in itself, particularly as it relates to the music that you create and you compose. And jazz, of course, is so wide in its bandwidth. It's interesting to have simply a vocalist to talk to about your instrument, which is your voice. We are going to transition to a listening portion of the podcast. This way an audience can hear your vocalism and better understand kind of the nature and sound of your voice and your music. So there are two cuts, and if you'd like, Aditi, I'll have you set them up. So we'll start with Anarti. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that came to be?
I was interested in exploring connections between my roots in Indian classical music, but also the popular and folk music of India, just music that I was surrounded with during my childhood, whether it was spiritual, religious music, or like popular, like Bollywood, or it could just be anything and everything that was very tied together for me, and also my Indian classical background. And at the Global Jazz Institute, they really encouraged us to explore these connections with jazz and harmony. And Danilo has this concept of tetrachords where he wants us to imagine a more horizontal way of connecting through harmony. And for me, thinking about a drone, which is basically your do and so, singing against like a drone on a traditional instrument called tanpura. For me, thinking about that and trying to compose melodies that are somewhat inspired by rags, but also more atonal, and hearing those against that drone was a very exciting concept to explore. And lyrically, also, I wanted to somehow integrate those ideas because Anarti was the name of the home that I was born in, that I grew up in. And so I wanted to be thinking about my childhood, but also like this play, of childhood, but also the deep wisdom, the ancient kind of wisdom that's like there in this music. So yeah, the lyrics and the melodies, whether without words or with words, are both inspired by these ideas.
Wonderful. Well, that's very well expressed. There's a lot of range, obviously, and influence in your compositions. Well, let's have the audience have a listen to Anarti. Wow, that's a very solid example of your voice, and the fact that when I listen to that, I'm listening to a lot of the qualities that you talked about and the range of your voice, and yet I'm hearing the instrumentation sort of is floating in a sense, and your voice is maybe just a little bit above it, but it all sort of, it balances. And I love what I hear is more traditional instruments that are playing an accompaniment with you. So it's a beautiful piece. And later on, I'm going to ask you some more questions related to vocalism as an instrument. Do you want to set up Cummings Road just a bit for us, Aditi? Thank you.
Yeah. So Cummings Road was actually the last song that I wrote, at the end of the year, at the end of this graduate program. And I feel like a lot of ideas and insecurities and just questions that I started with at the start of the year felt like they were answered by this piece. And it kind of flowed in that way. So it was originally an assignment for a class that we had at Global called Music and Social Activism, where we're just kind of taught by Professor Patricia Perez. And I just thought I would try to write a blues using Indian solfege. And that's what it started with. And just the idea of using Indian solfege also reminded me of a very common rhythmic cycle that we use, which is for like 7/8 kind of, but we instead of doing 4+3, which is how it's maybe done in the West, we do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, tak, tak, dhimi. And this is used in like a lot of Bollywood songs too. It's just, it was surprising to me how some of the most popular songs I grew up listening to were in this rhythmic cycle. So that was that was kind of exciting that I didn't think of it, and that also so many non-musicians can just be kind of clapping this out
Yes.
very naturally and
Right.
singing with it,
Right.
even when they don't know anything, they're not counting really.
Right.
So this was an experiment to just write a short blues using Indian solfege, so but with the harmony and in this rhythmic cycle. And I grew to like what I wrote, and then I kind of composed around it before and after, and just kind of using those themes. And Cummings Road is the street that I live on right
Ah.
now. So it's just it was my way of taking this idea of home and expanding it to the different homes I've lived in and
Wow.
belong to.
Well, again, a wonderful explanation. Thanks so much. And of course, rhythm being kind of the basic beginning and source of all music, and the relationship of the beat and all of that, we know from African cultures, we know from Indian cultures, and world music. Wonderful. So let's have a listen to Cummings Road. Wow, again, featuring your voice, and in many ways in this particular song, it really soars, but I also was listening for the beat that you were talking about in your voice, and how, if you follow the bouncing ball in the old days, the beat as it goes and rises and falls. Very emotional in the voicing, it seems, and I love the fact that it's a sparse accompaniment by an acoustic guitar. Very meaningful, obviously, personally to you. I think that the emotion does come through. So thank you for sharing the explanation as well for these two compositions. I'd like to just ask you a couple of questions that relate to vocalism and that as an instrument. I'm wondering, as a vocalist, how do you compose when you're thinking in terms of integrating with an instrument, the guitar in that example, et cetera? How do you work together to decide the integration of the instrument?
Yeah. So I think being in music school has definitely given me the tools to be able to communicate my ideas
Ah,
well to all instruments. And I mean, in the case of the first song, it was more orchestrated because it was like somewhat of a chamber orchestration, and that's been really exciting for me to explore, just like writing out parts for everybody and writing out large scores, and writing out bass lines and seeing
okay.
double what and who can how does that relate to the melody and what chord does that form? Coming to the last song where it was actually just a guitar and the cello that was playing a bass part and tabla. So that was a more unusual instrumentation, but I just kind of gave them some kind of a lead sheet with melody and bass and chords. And I did have some specific voicings in places.
Hmm.
I don't really play guitar, but my friend Ria, who played on it, definitely had a lot to offer. I mean, she added her own melodicism to it as well. Um, but but definitely like chord symbols, bass lines, melody, and then just the fact that the privilege to be able to play with friends who are also really sensitive musicians who can
Hmm.
own flavor to the songs.
Sure. That's another good explanation. There is the relationship. It is quite intimate, certainly. And you're feeding off each other's ideas and the nature of the music that you're composing. Along the lines of, obviously, your Indian roots, as it relates to maybe more contemporary music or music removed from Indian music, how did you combine your Indian roots and cultural experience with, say, more contemporary musical influences? What came to your ear?
So when I was growing up, I think as a child, I was always trying to. I don't think I appreciated as much like the Indian classical
Hmm.
background. You know, when you're younger, you just kind of want to um, sing these like loud, like belty kind of
Sure.
songs.
Right.
But um, but I was really inspired by like artists like soul artists like Etta James,
Ah,
Aretha Franklin. Like I loved singing that music in my teens, and I think like when I first heard someone like Ella Fitzgerald or Billie Holiday and the songs that they were singing, I might not have related or understood the content of what they were singing, but something about the harmonies behind them and the sonic landscape that was being created
hmm.
that time in this place that's really far away from where I grew up was I was very enamored by that, and so I think I've just been exploring and trying to study even Brazilian music for a long time. And being at the Global Jazz Institute
Hmm.
reminded me, or in fact encouraged me, to go back to my early background and my roots. So I think all of those different influences were already part of me, and I just
Right.
had to dig a little bit deeper and find a way to make peace with both of them in a way that I didn't find like superficial or corny or
Right.
something.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Because I interviewed another jazz artist from Berklee College of Music a couple of weeks ago, and then I asked somewhat the same question. She's Cuban, and of course, Cuba has this enormous influence on all directions of music over time. And I said, but separate from that, what were you listening to that was contemporary, and how did that come to you? And she said, well, it just came to me. I've been listening to the radio. I've been listening to soul. I've been listening to American blues. I've been listening to it all, and it just all came in, and I'd heard it, and I kept memory of it. So, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, because people sometimes get too kind of specified. Say this is a jazz artist. This is a blues artist, right? It's a combination of all these influences.
Yeah.
Thinking in terms of the voice as an instrument, which I think more and more in jazz when I listen to it, you mentioned some of the greats earlier. From your perspective, what is it that is unique about the voice as an instrument as opposed to the jazz musician that plays piano or the jazz musician that plays saxophone? I mean, your voice is your instrument. So could you talk a little about the uniqueness of that?
Um, I think with the voice, I mean, we definitely can't do what piano players can do or even
Right.
horn players. Although it can be really fun to try these big intervallic leaps and singing fast and scatting and things. But I'm always amazed by the multitude that the voice has to offer, especially in jazz, which I don't think, I mean, I think it's been explored really beautifully by a lot of different vocalists. And but what's amazing to me is how every vocalist has their own version of it, because it
Right.
has the voice is just it's such a personal instrument.
Yes.
There's no separating your individuality, your personality, your spirit from your voice. And in order to make a name or to just do something special with improvisation and with more just with new music, you have to approach it in your own unique way because you can't lie with it.
Right, right, exactly. Well, kind of piggybacking on what you just finished here, I've always wanted to ask, or I always, I guess, wanted to praise or point out to vocalists at your level. And I wrote about this in one article when I was trying to cover kind of what is unique about vocalists in jazz as opposed to guitarists or bassists. So my line was, okay, so you can't hide when you're a vocalist and you're on stage and you're performing a piece, okay? A guitarist has chords. If they're having trouble with their solo, they can return to their chord progression and the audience may not even know the difference. Or a bassist the same way is having trouble with the scales, he's going to go back to the regular rhythm that he had or she had. The drummer can correct their rhythm. In an instant, a drummer can correct the rhythm if they go off. But I put it this way. I said a vocalist has nowhere to hide. You're on the stage. It is your voice. Can you talk a little bit about maybe it's not the stress, but the demands of being kind of naked musically on stage? It,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for one, you really have to work on your ears. That's what I
okay.
was reminded of when you were citing your passage. And that to me is actually really fun. I mean, all instrumentalists should do it, and good musicians are always working on their ears. And I think that's so fascinating about the voice that there's no way to hide. You have to know, you have to really hear everything that you're singing. So it just feels more genuine in so many ways, even if it's more sparse
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and not as many notes. So yeah, and then there's the aspect of lyrics. I mean, we're the only people who can deliver the
Right.
lyrics, and that's so important. Not everybody is able to do that, and when you're standing in the front and you're singing a lyric and trying to connect with people, the yeah, you have to really tell your own story with it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
I really find that also fascinating about it.
Yeah, you do, and you pointed out some of the greats of what Ella Fitzgerald might do with a jazz piece, or what Billie Holiday might do, or Sarah Vaughan, or more contemporary. I'm thinking in terms of mostly female vocalists, really. Um, it's an amazing instrument, but I kind of think in terms of you're really standing out there on your own, a bit bare at times. It's challenging.
Yeah.
Um, Turning to your teaching, you've obviously pursued a very extensive teaching career, both privately and with other institutions. Do you want to talk a little bit about the relationship building that you have with your students?
Really, yeah, I really enjoy teaching, and I know that as musicians, we have to kind of do and balance a bunch of things, especially in the early stages of our career. And I feel fortunate actually that teaching is a big part of that for me, and
Mm-hmm.
it's something that I've always enjoyed. And I've been lucky enough to do it. I've been lucky to have it be a big part of my life. I recently taught at the Swarna Bhumi Academy of Music in India in the spring of 2023, and it was in a really beautiful remote location in the south of India. You kind of just live there with
Okay.
in the same apartment complex as the students. And there's obviously the flexibility you can have with private students. You can tailor it to whatever they need, to where they're coming from, where they want to go with their voice. And it's very vulnerable, sharing that space with my students. And it was just amazing to see the different directions each private student wants to go in, and the results of it. Just like at the end of 4 months, seeing where they started out and the different places they've all ended. The repertoire that they've chosen could be in different languages, different styles. Just seeing them come into their own is really inspiring.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, that's some part of your life that's obviously very important and obviously very rewarding. And that's wonderful that's obviously they're learning and gaining a tremendous amount from your teaching and teaching experience and the relationship that you build with them. Well, as 30 minutes quickly comes to a close, we've had a wonderful conversation, and I do always want to give an artist an opportunity to talk about any upcoming performances or recording projects, just anything in general. So I'll let you mention those.
Sure. Thank you so much again for this, and for your kind words. I'm recording, in the process of recording and post-production for my upcoming album that I'm planning to release in March next year. So that will be kind of a compilation of some of the music that you heard today, and some things that I've recorded over the summer. So that would be my first big record.
Great.
But I did release a single earlier this year called Blue as the Sun, and that's out on all streaming platforms if anybody wants to listen. And performances, I'm still kind of balancing the time that it takes for my post-production and everything. So I don't have anything lined up in the coming months, but hopefully soon. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the audience can certainly find you on the internet, and we do post your web address when we produce this podcast. So wishing you all the best, Aditi, obviously moving forward in a young career, and thank you for sharing a little bit about your background and your musical journey and the discussions regarding vocalism, really the use of your voice as a form of instrument and expression. It's been very, very unique. So wish you all the best, and thank you again.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you so much.